All right. Morning, everybody, or afternoon, depending on where you are. Welcome to the Leadership Conversation Podcast. Today, I have a special guest, Sergeant First Class Lacey Evans, aka Disco Lenny. You want to tell me a little bit about yourself, or tell the people a little bit about yourself?
So I am Lacey Evans. I'm a Sergeant First Class in the United States Army Reserves in the AGR program, better known as Disco
Mm-hmm.
Lenny. I'm
All
also
right.
a wife, a dog mom, and a business owner.
Nice. Okay. So, how long have you been on the AGR tour?
I've been on this particular AGR tour since June of 2023, and I've been on the AGR program since 2019.
Nice. Uh, can you share with everybody essentially what inspired you to join the AGR program?
When I joined the AGR program, it was actually the second time I had applied. I had applied for the AGR program several years ago, and I did get accepted, but it was as military police. So for those who aren't
Mm.
aware, I have three MOSs. I'm a 31 Bravo, 31 Echo, and also 42.
Oh, nice. I didn't
When
know
I,
that. What
yeah,
what what's a 31 Echo? Is that what is that?
it's in slang, it's a cage kicker, but professional military terms, it's an interment resettlement specialist, which is essentially a corrections officer.
Oh, nice. I didn't know that. Okay, my bad. Go ahead.
So I applied on the encouragement of some soldier that I met while I was overseas, and he was like, "Hey, have you applied to the program?" And it's just because I updated something on his SRB, and I said, "Yeah, I've tried, but I haven't gotten picked up." And he goes, "Call this guy, and he'll be able to get you on." And so I talked about it with my sergeant major at that time, and I
Mm-hmm.
really just essentially felt like I had so much more to give to the Army at that point in time. I had already had 4 deployments under my belt, and I had the quintessential perfect life back home. I mean, I
Mm-hmm.
had a job at Social Security, I had a house, I had a sports car, the perfect family, and it just wasn't enough for me adventure wise. I just
I got
thought,
it.
like, this isn't the life I want to live for like the next 40 years or so. Like, no shade to people who do that, but I just felt like I had so much more to give to the world and to the Army. And that gentleman that I called did get me onto the AGR program, and the AGR program has taken me to some amazing places. HRC, I worked for the Joint Chiefs of Staff at the Pentagon,
Oh,
and
nice.
I've been to New York, Fort Belvoir, all these awesome places. So joined, and I never looked back.
So, have you heard before that the AGI program is like one of the best kept secrets in the Army?
I did until I got to like the talent management world where it
Yeah.
seems like it's so hard to bring people on. And
Mm-hmm.
I have been told that for years. I didn't even know what AGR was when people told me, and they're like, it's the best thing. And I'm like,
You and
what
me
is
both.
that?
Yeah,
Yeah.
you and me both. Uh, I got on the AGR tour back in September of 2005. So it's been like a long,
Oh,
feels
so
like a
you've been
long
knowing.
time. Yeah. No, well, I did. I actually didn't know anything about it. When somebody mentioned it to me, I was like, AGR, what's that? And I was like, oh, it's where you are active duty, but you work at the reserve unit. And I was like, oh, okay, I'll give it a try. And I applied. Man, back then HRC was in St. Louis. It wasn't in Fort Knox like it is now. And we, I'm telling you how old I am. I mailed my packet to HRC. So that lets you know. All right. Well, of course, the podcast is about leadership. So, being that you've been on the AGR program for a minute and you've been a talent manager, can you share how being on the AGR tour kind of shape your leadership journey?
Yes, so as a talent manager, I'll start by saying like it's one of the best jobs I've ever had in the Army. And it's really because I get to have like that direct soldier to soldier contact with enlisted soldiers. And what I have figured out throughout my time here is that I prefer to work with enlisted soldiers. And I feel like in this position, as far as like from a leadership perspective, talent management is really about not so much as like the MOS that
Mm-hmm.
you're managing, but more of the human aspect of it, where you need to be able to put yourself in their shoes, and you need to have that empathy and be human with like the situations that a lot of soldiers have going on.
Right.
Um, I was one of those people before I came to HRC where, like, contrary to popular belief, I thought that CMF manages that CMF.
Mm-hmm.
So I assumed I was going to come on and be a 42 Alpha talent manager. And they
Mm-hmm.
said, no, you're going to manage the 91 Bravos. And I was like, I don't even know what that is. What do you
Yeah.
mean? So there's this real big thought process of like, oh, wow, like I have to go manage a CMF I know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and I felt a great responsibility to make sure that I do it correct and to the best of my abilities to ensure that I'm making the right decisions for them when it comes to PCSing or like career progression. So in the beginning, that was really hard for me because I was afraid to misstep and make the wrong choice for our soldiers because they entrust you so much as a talent manager. And the more
Oh
that they
yeah,
know
that's true.
about you and the more that they're exposed to you, they come to you more. So I just wanted to make sure that like I'm always taking care of those soldiers. And I feel like I have a really good ability to relate to soldiers regardless of like rank or MOS, and share my own stories, but without taking away from their experiences. So it's
Right.
been a very rewarding journey. And I would just say that, yeah, like you need to be human in this position.
Right. I've heard on more than one occasion that the number one quality to have as a leader is to be approachable, and I think that's like pretty dope. So,
Yeah, that's something I've had to work on throughout the years because I haven't always been very approachable.
okay. Well, I'll tell you what. Leading into my next question to you, I know you mentioned that you are a 42 Alpha, and you manage 91 Bravos. So when it comes to managing 91 Bravos, despite your 42 Alpha background, are there any, well, first off, how do you, like specifically, if you can give examples, how do you kind of support them? I know you mentioned about trying to put the right soldier in the right spot, but how do you support them?
I think there's many variables to consider when doing that, but like initially, I knew I had to connect with senior 91s within the CMF, so I worked very closely with our ARPA. We also
Mm,
have another TM on our team who is a seasoned 91 who's been in almost 20 years. And so I do seek their guidance to ensure that, like, hey, this guy's going from this position to this position. Does this make sense? Yes or no? And also, I would say talent management isn't solely about focusing on the MOS, but like I said, like focusing on the soldier leader aspect and like career progression, because there's things that soldiers can do throughout their career that is not MOS specific. So as far as like, self development and learning and
mm-hmm.
challenging yourself in certain things. So those are all things that I share with the soldiers as far as like me trying to do my best to take care of them and sharing my own experiences and the things that like I've done in my own career to get to where I'm at because I feel like that's applicable to any soldier across the army
Oh
regardless
yeah,
of the
most definitely.
CMFs.
Yeah, most
So like
definitely.
for example, I competed in best squad competition at 35 years old. That was a big scary thing for me at a 2-star level. I've
Yeah.
never done nothing like that in my life.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, I feel like I was like old decrepit compared to the other competitors who are they're all in their 20s and they're all active duty, right? And
Mm-hmm.
I sent an email out to the entire CMF and I said, I'm doing this big scary thing. But my point in telling you guys this is one, to hold myself accountable, and two, to show you guys that these things are possible regardless of your rank, grade, gender, age. You guys can go pursue those things. So I think it's a matter of like knowing how to utilize and harness your influence for like the biggest positive impact that you can give to soldiers.
Nice. So who's the ARPA now for the 91 Bravos?
Shout out to Sergeant Major Aparicio.
Yes,
Uh,
sir.
he's awesome. He's a great sounding board. I always
Mm-hmm.
send soldiers over to him to talk about their careers and get their
Mm-hmm.
evals evaluated. So he also provides excellent guidance as far as like 91 CMF specific
He
things that
does.
they need for their career.
Yeah. I know when I was an instructor at the schoolhouse in Fort Knox, he was one of my students. And while he was in class, we found out that he got accepted and was going to this
Oh
Sergeant
my
Major
gosh.
Academy. So that was pretty dope.
Yeah.
And I talk to him often. I can't wait to get up there and go fishing with him. So good thing.
Yes.
So you sound like you are. super, super excited about your position as a career manager, right?
Yes.
But, or a talent manager. So, in comparison to everything else that you did in your Army career, right? Does the, like, how does it compare to all the other roles?
I feel like it's a blessing and a curse to be in this position as far as the word that I think of is responsibility. Uh, we have the honor and privilege to be in these positions to take care of these soldiers.
Oh, yeah.
Similarly, we shoulder a great burden of responsibility for these same soldiers, right? And I say that because soldiers every day share very personal things with me.
Mm-hmm.
And I need to be able to adapt to each of these situations. For example, I could be having a Teams conversation with one soldier who's telling me he's getting promoted. He's telling me all about the promotion ceremony and what
Mm-hmm.
they're going to do. In another Teams chat, I have someone telling me they need a compassionate assignment for this really hard family situation that they're going through.
Mm-hmm.
And there are situations where soldiers tell me such personal things that, it keeps me awake at night because I'm shouldered with that responsibility to ensure that I'm making the right decisions for them because it not only affects them, but it affects their families as well.
Mm-hmm.
And
This is
so
true.
it is a great privilege and it's an honor to be here. But I want to be sure that like I'm giving the soldiers the best guidance possible. And also like sometimes it feels like I'm a squad leader to 550 soldiers. Even though I'm all the way up here, these soldiers feel very comfortable to be able to reach out to me, which I'm very thankful for.
Right.
And so there's a lot of that communication, that social interaction where, I'm expected to give them what they want. And I think more importantly, I'm trying my best to give them that as well.
Okay. So let me ask you this. It sounds like what you're doing for the soldiers as a talent manager is uh extremely rewarding to you, right?
Oh yeah,
But
definitely.
in the realm of being like a talent manager, what do you feel like is the most rewarding part of your job? Like the
Hands
most rewarding.
hands down, direct soldier to soldier contact.
Yeah.
I literally get paid to talk to soldiers all day. I get to work with junior enlisted soldiers where I really get to exercise like leadership, mentorship, and my influence versus a more senior population.
Mm-hmm.
Fun fact, I'm not going to say who, but I was rejected from an organization before coming to HRC. And I think it was because I said I was tired of working with officers.
Mm-hmm.
And I said I wanted to go work with enlisted again. So the universe listens and they sent me to HRC and I got to work, or I am working with the best population ever, which is the junior enlisted soldiers. So um, that's been very rewarding. And these soldiers, they entrust me so much, and I couldn't have asked for anything better. I've always had a passion for selfless service
Mm-hmm.
and servant leadership and being able to help people around me. But I feel like where I can impact the most positive change is with the junior enlisted population because you can shape and influence them, and they're also the future of the force.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's pretty dope. I like that. And I tell you, when I was at the schoolhouse, right? Like I had a fear. Donovan's going my teaching partner at the time was gonna kill me when I say this. And I was like, "Oh, you remember such and such?" And he was like, "Dude, I don't know what it is." And I was like, "No, the guy, he was tall and he was sitting in the front row. He was like, I don't know how you remember everybody." I was like, "I don't. I just like, I don't know. Maybe it's because I'm tall. I have a better point of view." But I was just like, "Oh, I remember that guy." And I often thought that once the soldiers left the classroom, that they'll forget you, right? But
Yeah.
that wasn't always the case. Some of them did, but that wasn't always the case. And we would sit down and we would have conversations. Someone would reach out to me on social media. "Hey, my son, I had this question about this. I was wondering if you can help me out." Or, "Hey, how's you going? I didn't know that you were retiring. I didn't know that you were starting the podcast." And it feels good that I was in a position where I was able to see a lot of soldiers in the AGR program. One, two, some that are in my specific field, right?
Yes.
and you essentially kind of influence the force and you shape the force. And then we gave the students not just information about their job, but we gave information about the Army, why you should try to get promoted, why education matters, stuff like that. So
Yes.
and then like I said, when they left, it was good for me that they reached back out to me and just asked me how I was doing. So I like that. Okay, so let's talk about, well, speaking of teaching partners, I didn't really read a lot before I came to the RTech. And one of my teaching partners, Donovan, was like, "Hey man, I read this book of such and such." And I was like, "I don't know how you read the book." I was like, "Man, I get bored just sitting down reading a book." And he was like, "Hey, have you ever listened to um an audiobook?" And I was like, "No." He said, "Dude, you never heard of Audible?" And I was like, "No." And he's like, "You like music?" I was like, "Bro, I love music." And he was like, "Well, we should sit down and have a conversation." So we talked about it, and then he hooked me up with a bunch of books that I should read. And by far, one of my favorite books is one called Think Again. I think next in line would be The Spider and the Starfish, and third, which would be probably be a close second, would be the Jocko Willett books, all the books.
Mm.
So, with that being said, are there any books or podcasts that you would use that inspires you as a soldier or as a civilian?
I don't do as much reading as I would like these days. I'm a very busy person. I'll say
Mm-hmm.
that. Um, but I don't want to discredit books or podcasts. I don't listen to podcasts too much. I'm kind of like you, or like the time that I do have in my car and I'm by myself, like depending on my mood, I need to set the vibe and tone for the day. So I'm often listening to music. But as far as books goes, the number one book that really sticks out to me is Atomic Habits by James Clear.
Oh
And it's
man,
something, yeah. And
love
so
that
he
book.
also has a newsletter called 321.
Mm-hmm. I got that
It's,
too.
do you?
Yes.
Oh my gosh, you're the first person I've met who
Yep.
has that. And it's
Yep.
three ideas, two quotes, one question for the week.
Yep.
And it's to help people, kind of put things into perspective of how they can like maybe shift their priorities and just kind of tighten up and refine things to improve themselves. And I've been a subscriber of that newsletter for so many years. So anyone that I meet, or like I've even gifted like the Atomic Habits book, and it's just about being able to build systems to achieve goals rather than focusing on the goal without the system.
Nice. Have you ever not necessarily suggested a book, but have you ever, with the book that you just told me, have you ever talked to any of your soldiers like, "Hey, I think you can really benefit from reading this book"? How did
Absolutely.
how did that conversation go?
Uh, they, it wasn't the solution they were looking for,
Mm-hmm.
but I said, hey, I think you can really benefit from maybe just like a couple of things. Just skim through the book. If you don't like it, just give it back to me.
Yeah.
It's
Yeah.
fine.
Exactly.
Um, but she read the whole book and she was able to make some like really positive changes in her life. Oh, I just thought of another one. Lincoln on Leadership is an
Oh,
awesome book. And
somebody told me about that one. You would have to send me a message on that one so I can like look it up.
so my old first sergeant from like 10 years ago, she had the Lincoln on Leadership paperback and she brought it with her on deployment. She brought the book and a pack of colored pencils and she was like, pick a pencil color. And I'm like, okay. So I picked a color and I'm like, I opened the book and I just thumbed through the pages and there's a bunch of stuff highlighted with different colored pencils. And I was like, what is this? This looks like a rainbow. And
Mm-hmm.
she was like, every single thing that you see underlined is something that another soldier felt it was important for leadership. So I
Oh,
want
nice.
you to read this book and underline things that you feel are important for leadership. And like the
That
whole
is
book
dope.
is phenomenal. And I'm really obsessed with like Abe Lincoln. I have like portraits of him in my house, and and it's an easy read, right? So I would really highly suggest that book as well.
Nice. Yeah, you gotta send me the link to that one so I can check
I
that one
will.
out. All right. Okay, switching up just a little bit. Like I said earlier, a lot of people who see you know you as Sergeant First Class Lacey
Yeah.
Evans. However, you do have, should I say alter ego? But is that
You
an
can say
alter
that.
ego? Okay,
Yes,
so
it
you
is.
have an ego, which is Disco Lenny, where you create these like custom disco balls, and I've seen them. They're pretty dope. I don't have enough hair for a hair bow, but maybe I'll get a disco ball for my car. So let me ask you a question about that. And this, I guess it falls into like the creative leadership side. But when it comes
Yeah.
to you creating like the disco ball charms, one, how did you get started? Let's talk about that first.
That was totally by accident. I
Oh
did
yeah.
not plan on becoming a disco queen slash disco dealer at all.
Hmm.
I purchased one from another seller, and it wasn't at all what I ordered, and I was really disappointed, and it broke after 2 days. And I was just like, I could
I'm
do
gonna
this
make my
better.
own. Yeah,
Right. So I did. But what that I wasn't prepared for is everyone was like, can you make me one? Can you make me one? So on and so forth. And so that's how Disco Lenny was born. It was born by
that sounds.
accident.
It sounds like a good accident.
Yeah.
So I've seen some of your disco charms. I've seen one specifically with the San Francisco, not yeah, San Francisco 49ers one, and that's for one of my battles who you may know, Sun First Class Barrera.
Oh yeah.
Oh
Oh
no, I'm
yeah.
sorry, Master
That's
Sergeant.
all right.
I demoted her. I'm
That's all right.
sorry. So if you listening, I'm sorry. I demoted you. Uh, and I
Yeah.
was like, oh, when I looked at them, I was like, oh, they're pretty cute. And it takes someone to be super creative to think of something like that to just say, oh, I'm going to go with disco balls. Do you feel like anything that you've done in your on your creative side as Disco Lenny has helped shape how you are as a leader on
Yeah,
the military
absolutely.
side? So how
Oh
to
yeah.
explain that a little bit? What do you think?
So I would preface that with like Disco Lenny is my first successful business. I've had many failed businesses before Disco Lenny where I had like true intentions and I really pursued things and I invested money in them and they all failed. So I bring up failure because I think it's really important for everyone to experience some sort of failure and come through on the other side of it to really achieve success.
Most definitely.
And that's because like you have to go through those experiences to know where to pivot. Maybe you need to reshape your mindset and things of that nature.
Of course.
Creatively, I feel like I think of my team at work. So, like, I'm the only female talent manager on our team outside of our branch NCOIC, but talent
Hmm.
managers, I'm the only female. And so, it makes me laugh because, like, my whole cube is decorated with like disco balls and pink, and I have
Hmm.
like a pink Christmas tree with disco balls. And so, I feel like everywhere you go, no matter the team or the organization that you're in, you need someone who's a little weird, who's an individual who is perhaps a black sheep, because it creates diversity in that environment. And when you have that type of diversity, I think it really helps the organization and that team bring something different to the table, and you're able to think creatively and strategically at the same time. So bringing all that into like the forefront really helps you and your team like be very adaptive and efficient in what you're doing, because if everyone's just thinking the same way and they're just like, yeah, I don't know, that sounds good, like
Hmm.
you're not going to get to the end state that you're looking for.
I got to tell you, like one of the, and I keep referring to the schoolhouse, and I don't know if you heard my last podcast when I was talking to Colonel Powell, but it was one of the best assignments I've ever had. Right. Um, there was a guy who was over us. His name is Matthew. When we went to the classroom, he told us, I was like, hey, I'm thinking about doing. You've heard the term before. Oh, that's the way it's always been done, right?
Oh yeah.
And then a lot of times people don't like being creative. They don't like thinking of anything outside the box either because they don't care or they just lack creativity. So when I came in, I was like, me and Donovan, we essentially changed the schoolhouse. I don't know if you've ever been there, but they used to print out paper. And me and Donovan, I went to a Lean Six Sigma green belt class, and we changed the entire schoolhouse to the point where our classes were strictly like we didn't print any paper, right?
I love that.
And yeah, we and the chief and not the chief instructor, but the course manager was like, "Hey, I noticed that you guys are not picking up any paper." And I was like, "Oh, we decided to do this, and everything is online, and we can grade it online, and they can submit it through Blackboard, yada yada yada," which is something that he really liked. And then I asked him, I was like, "Hey, I'm sorry, man, I didn't ask you if that was okay." And he said to me, "Look." my responsibility as your leader is to give you left and right limits. He was like, anything that you do in the middle, as long as it's not wrong morally or breaking any kind of like, rules in the army or laws, he was like, then I'm okay with it. And it gave me a space to be super creative, which I really, really love. Right.
Mm.
I was creative in the way that I started my classes. Somebody listening to this is going to tell you that I used to have like dad jokes. My first class that I was teaching, listen, I was bombing. I was just like, if you look here, and then all of a sudden I noticed that I was losing class and I was like, hey, anybody like dad jokes? And then my teacher partner kind of looked up like, what the hell's going
That's
on?
it.
Yeah. And then I said it, and when he did my evaluation afterwards, he was like, "Dude, I got to tell you, man, you bringing in that dad joke was like super creative and super fun, and it got the class back on track, got them talking." So I do like creativity, and I like anybody that you know uh, appreciates creativity. So let's talk about your role as both Disco Lenny and Sergeant First Class Evans. How do you balance the two? Because I see I see you in uniform online and you're like, hey, these are soldiers. I see you posting things to the CMF page, to the AJR Miltech page. You got your own special coin that looks like a poker chip, which is super dope. And
Hmm.
then I'll also see you posting like, hey, I got my disco balls in and this is the link to my store and hey, these are sold out. So how do you balance between the two?
I don't. I'm gonna
What?
be honest with you. I know that's not the answer like people are expecting, but like I'm being so 100 right now that like I don't. It's something that like I'm currently working on to find that balance and like establish boundaries. So I have like strict boundaries. Like I don't. Obviously, I'm not making orders at work, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
when I'm at work, I'm there to work. If you see me posting on Instagram during work hours or what have you, like I'm probably on a break in my car, but I don't do that stuff during work. So it leaves me nighttime or the weekends.
Mm-hmm.
And depending on how many orders I have, that can take up my entire weekend. It could take up my evenings, and sometimes, truthfully, I'm requesting time off
Yeah.
to
Just to get caught
do
up
those
or
things to
yeah.
get caught up because it's just like there's such an overwhelming response for Disco Lenny right now, and it's just me. Like I do everything. I have to be able to deliver when I say I'm going to deliver, and so there's things that I'm working on as far as like trying to prevent that burnout and
Mm-hmm.
trying to create a better balance in the future. Like I'm only going to take X amount of orders for this month. Like September, I'm taking all of September off from orders. I'm not taking any orders just because I feel like I need that break. But I struggle with it. I do. And yeah, it's something that I'm working on.
Right.
Yes. Yeah, it is.
So I know that in order to, I don't know if anybody's seen the disco balls, but they're like pretty dope. But I have huge hands, and it takes me a lot to like concentrate on stuff. And I don't know how you put those little mirrors on the disco ball. But when you talk about, I know that that's creative, right? But speaking of like innovation and creativity, have you ever, or can you name a time that you use a little bit of your creativity to solve a problem in the military, at your job, maybe HRC or with the soldier or whatever the case is?
I feel like something you actually already touched on, which is like the initiative of the Chips of Excellence, right?
Yes.
So I wouldn't say it's an innovative issue. I feel like it's just been a historical issue across the Army where there's soldiers who are grinding day in and day out, who are just quiet professionals doing their job, exceeding the standards, and they don't get recognized. Or someone will try to recognize that soldier, but the award never makes it to where it's supposed to go, or the award gets downgraded, or someone says they don't need an award, they're just doing their job.
Right.
And I've spoken to a lot of soldiers within the CMF where they're just like, I don't know what I'm doing this for. I'm being told I'm a great soldier, but I have nothing to show for it. And so I can't take full credit for Chips of Excellence. It was an idea brought to me by a soldier within the CMF who said, hey, Sarn, you should get coins. And I'm like, check it out, Sarn. I'm on a sergeant first class budget. I can't afford coins.
Right.
And he was like, you could try poker chips. And I was like, yeah, probably not, but whatever. And
Yeah.
then just one day I actually looked to price them out, and I was like, I can do this. Like, I can do this one time charge and then just break them up over the course of a year. So the problem, not innovative. The solution is innovative because so many soldiers don't have the opportunity to ever speak to their talent manager, or like they feel so disconnected from this level that like we're a stranger to them, right?
Right.
So I feel like it's an innovative solution in the aspect of like, I'm human, you're a human, you're
Mm-hmm.
doing a good job, and your peers and your subordinates and your leaders want to recognize you for what you're doing. It takes me, what, all of 5 minutes to put together the coin, the cards that I made,
Mm-hmm.
and it all comes out of my pocket. It's not an HRC initiative. It's something that I'm only doing as like me, a Sergeant First Class Evans, to recognize those soldiers. And I think that's really important if you want to retain good and excellent leadership and subject matter experts within the force. Is like they need to be recognized. I had a soldier reach out to me the other day through email who I sent a coin to, and he said that he had never received any type of award. He's never
Really?
received a coin or a chip, and it meant so much to him. And I didn't do that. His leadership did.
Yeah.
His person who nominated him
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
did that, right? Like, I'm not nominating the soldiers. People are bringing me those nominations. And it's been an overwhelmingly positive response, to the chips of excellence. I've had so many people at work and they're like, where's my chip?
Yeah.
Like, that's not how it works, aren't.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
But I'm happy to see that the initiative is like, it's rippling through the Army, right?
Yeah.
And I'm really excited to see the impact that it can have
Mm-hmm.
on those soldiers who perhaps were thinking about getting out or just getting off of the program in general, because it's such a simple token, but I put so much thought and emphasis and meaning into each and every one of them, and it's specifically for the 91 CMF, and who I feel, now that I know them, are often overlooked for their hard work and efforts.
Until the vehicle breakdown. That's when they're. I think that's pretty. I think
Right.
that's pretty dope. I was listening to a show the other day, and I don't know who said it, but the guy was saying that there should be just as much. Like, if you're going to criticize someone about something, then you should be able to praise them also, right? And then I think back to when my son is in the army now, and I think back to him, and there were times where I was like, hey, I need you to take the trash out, bro. Take the trash out. And he would forget all the time. I was like, bro, come on, man. Like, take the trash out. But I would always fuss at him when he didn't do what he was supposed to do. But then I told him this a couple of weeks ago, and I was like,
I
man,
know where
but
you're going with this.
I
Yeah.
was like, yeah, but I never said to you when you actually did what you're supposed to do, thank you, or hey, I appreciate it, or like, good job. And I feel like there should be an equal amount of criticism and praise because nobody wants to hear
Absolutely.
all the time, hell, well, I just want to, you need to improve, you need to improve, you need to improve. Like, damn, am I doing anything good? Right. So I think that's a good thing. All right. So I know we spoke about leadership, but when you talk about your you're a mentor and your leadership for soldiers, like, is there a specific person in your life that was a mentor to you?
Oh yeah. I I have a couple right off the bat. Is
I was going to
Marine.
ask you. I was going to ask you if you wanted to shout them out.
Uh, I don't think he would want to be shouted out, but it was a
Hmm.
Marine Corps Sergeant Major who
Hmm.
I was his executive assistant on a deployment. And being in the Marine Corps, they have very different ways of doing things. And
Oh,
when I was chosen, I was nominated to take that position. He said, "Hey, you're going to be a mini me by the time I'm done with you, like with the knife hand and everything." And I was like, probably not, but okay.
yeah,
But
yeah.
uh, I absolutely adopted all of his leadership style. Um, and I feel like some of the biggest key takeaways that I have from him is, don't be afraid of confrontation.
Hmm.
Don't be afraid to take that leap of faith. And like, don't be afraid to be yourself. Like, you can be unapologetically yourself as a leader and still accomplish the mission while also maintaining your influence and your personality.
Yeah, no doubt about that. Uh, so I think that's pretty good. I think that what lack a lot of soldiers these days is they don't have mentors, and it doesn't have to be. So one, getting a mentor, and two, picking the right mentor. Right.
Yes.
Um, a lot of people have this idea. Oh well, this guy scored like a 300. Well, I think it's like what 600 now on the
Yeah.
ACFT. So this guy scored a 600 on ACFT. I want to be his mentee. He can be my mentor. But in my opinion, that's not really how you choose a mentor. Uh, Picking somebody that like walks the walk and talk the talk. And I think having a mentor and then finding the right mentor is like a very, very critical thing to do, especially in an organization like the military. So um, it leaves essentially like a lasting impact and legacy. And speaking of legacy, is there a specific legacy that you see yourself leaving in the Army Reserve or I want to say HRC in general?
Oh, it's such a big question. Well, because when I hear legacy, I think of like when I'm long gone out of the army, when I'm dead,
Mm-hmm.
what legacy would I want to leave? And I think for me, the legacy that I would want to leave, like the way that I would want to be remembered is just by like providing a really positive impact on a soldier's life,
Yeah.
no matter how big or small. Um, Perhaps I was able to impact them by, a really huge PCS that was a game changer for their career or their family. Um, I wanted to be, or I do want to be the person that encouraged them and empowered them to go and pursue like that big scary thing. If it's going warrant,
Right.
reclassing, going active duty, because I find that a lot of soldiers that I speak to, they self-select. And
Mm-hmm.
what I mean by that is they tell themselves no before somebody else does.
Yes.
Um, they have imposter syndrome. So they'll tell me these big,
Well,
great
that's
ideas. And I'm like, Sarn, do it. Like,
mm-hmm.
put it in that packet. And he's like, but I can never do that.
Yeah.
Or so and so told me I can't do that. And I'm just like, says who? Are
Yeah.
they the gatekeeper to your future? And I had one soldier, I won't shout out his name. Hopefully he listens to this. And he told me, I met him a maintenance manager course when we went to go do our talent management briefs. And he told me, I want to go be a warrant. And I said, so go do it. I will support you on that. And he told me that I was the first person in his career to encourage him to do that. And I
Mhm.
feel like that's such a disservice
Oh
to
man,
soldiers.
I was just gonna say it's such a shame that nobody encourages people to like follow their dreams. I know if you know who Will Smith is, obviously, right? And Will Smith doesn't necessarily have a leadership book, but he has a book called Will. It's an autobiography, and it's like really, really dope. And he speaks a lot about his father. And at the end of the book, he is walking across like the Grand Canyon or something like that on a tightrope or whatever. I think it was televised. And one of the quotes he said in the book is that some of the best things in life are right on the other side of fear, right? So just when you think that it's like this scary thing that you can't do, it's essentially right on the other side of fear. And I think that's so dope. And just like you said, it's such a disservice that nobody actually encouraged a soldier to follow his dreams or say things like, I think that you should go warrant because it'll be a good idea. I think that's such a disservice.
And it's a really profound experience for me because like I only see me as me.
Hmm.
These soldiers see me as someone who is at HRC and is a
Right.
talent manager, right? So like these are these moments where I'm finding out like, oh, this is the type of influence that I have.
Oh yeah.
That soldier pursued warrant. And so when I think of legacy, I want, that's what I want those soldiers to remember is that they received the encouragement that they needed to go do the big, scary things. Even if that meant, having to experience failure, but on the other end of it, on the other end of that failure and that fear, there is success, even if it means you have to try again. That's what I want to be remembered as.
Nice. Okay. I like that. All right. So last question, or second to last question, and I think you know why, because it's a little, personal. I know we spoke about it before, but
Hmm.
um, for those of you for those who don't know, you did share with me that you lost a child, right?
Hmm.
I want you to kind of explain, or if you can, how losing a child help you become more resilient, not just as a leader, but in general.
So, yes, for those who don't know, I have lost a child. I feel like I carry my child in secret, right? Because a lot of people don't know. This is like the first time publicly that I'm sharing like this story.
Hmm.
Um, when I lost my son, I was a teen mom. I was a military spouse. I wasn't in the service yet. I didn't join the service till about a year later. And so I feel like when I think of resiliency, it was my calling to, I mean, to really join the army. And I feel like that in and of itself was an act of resiliency. Because there were several moments where like I definitely feel like I didn't want to be on this earth anymore when my son passed away. You know, it was so long ago that back then there was no grief groups, there was no resources. We were stationed in Fort Irwin, and it was just kind of like figure it out on your own and get on, right? Um, and so I kind of had to navigate that whole thing by myself. And I lived my life and my career in the honor of my son. And what I mean by that is, would my son be proud of the person that I am today? Would my son be proud of my achievements?
Okay.
And I've had a lot of moments throughout my career where I've had to, really exercise resiliency. Best squad competition, for example, I just did that. I didn't pass every event. There was events that I failed, but I never quit. And so like I didn't quit life when I wanted to quit life when my son passed away. There's moments with leaders who I felt like really dehumanized my experience by losing my son, and they weren't empathetic towards my situation. And it took a lot of resiliency in me to, overcome those moments and instances where I'm just a young specialist trying to navigate the army, but I don't have that support that I need.
Right.
And I think just from a leadership perspective in general, having lost a child, I think it's really important to highlight nowadays that leaders need to be more cognizant if they bring up the thought or the idea of like asking someone, why don't you have kids yet? Are you ever going to have kids? Because you don't
Right.
know that person's journey,
That's
right?
just
Especially for females. Like, you don't know if they've miscarried. You don't know if they've lost a child like me. And I know that people like, they don't do it on purpose. And it's really just like a societal norm that we've accepted throughout so many years. But my son has really taught me to really just be resilient in life, right? Like my son is one of the reasons why I continue to live. His spirit is what makes me pursue excellence and pursue all these accolades and these things that I'm doing that are hard and they're scary, because I believe that's the person my son would want me to be,
right.
and he would be very happy and proud of the person that I've become.
Man, I like that. That's like super dope. I I hate when someone goes through, or I hate when someone goes through something and then you hear someone say to that person, "Oh, I know how you feel." I, as a father, probably could never understand how it feels to lose a kid because I haven't lost one, man. So,
Right.
you know, um, shout out to you, and good job on being resilient for how you are.
Thanks for
So,
letting me share that.
oh yeah, no problem. I think that's a part of what you were saying as essentially being vulnerable, right? Because if soldiers don't know, then and you never know, you might have another 91 or someone who else who sees this and be like, "Oh my God, I didn't know that you lost a child, man!" Like, and
Yeah.
then you connect with them in a specific way. So that's good. Um, Last question, and I do this, or I'm going to start doing it with every podcast guest that I have. What's your favorite leadership quote that resonates with you?
I got two.
Okay, I'm ready. Two for the money.
All
Let's
right,
go.
number one, it's either a priority or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
It's as simple as that.
Explain
Whatever
explain that one a little bit.
whatever you're trying to do in your career or your life, it's either a priority or it's not.
Mm-hmm.
You want to score a 600 on your ACFT? What are you doing to get there? Oh, well, Sarn, no, well, Sarn, nothing. It's either a priority or it's not. You are going to prioritize the things that you want to pursue. And if you're not pursuing it and you're saying it but not executing any action towards it, sorry,
Mm-hmm.
that's not a priority.
Exactly.
So I feel like if you frame things into it's either a priority or it's not, you can accomplish a lot more and you
Okay.
can really figure out what's a priority. Thing two, this is interchangeable. Make your energy so expensive nobody can afford it. Also, make your anger so expensive nobody can afford it. And what that translates into is oftentimes in situations that we encounter every single day, it is
Mm-hmm.
not worth taking an emotional toll on you, and it's not worth getting angry over. Oftentimes situations, they don't warrant an emotional response. You just need to know how to use that inner dialogue and to protect
Mm-hmm.
your mental well-being and your overall well-being, and learn how to respond to things in a more, I guess, business approach, and something that doesn't affect you internally, because oftentimes things, they're not personal, it's just business. And if you feel like you're taking it personal, you need to make your energy a little more expensive, because we only get so many energy deposits and withdrawals per day, and whatever you take home with you is what you're left with.
And I like that. That is like super dope. I'm gonna have to use that on my son.
That's
I
right.
know some things. He's actually in the field right now. He's in Fort Carson, Colorado, and he's in the field right now. And he's like, "Oh, it sucks." And I was like, "Dude, chill." I was like, "You're a signal guy." I was like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "Oh, I'm in the tent all day." And I was like, "Well, you could be sleeping somewhere else." I was like, "So count your butt."
Okay, let's hunt the good stuff here.
Yeah. So that's what's up. All right. So that's it for the podcast. You have any final words or?
Thank you to everyone who let me come here today. I guess parting words is don't be afraid to pursue those big, scary things. Don't be afraid of failure. Take that leap of faith today. If you've listened to this podcast and you're feeling inspired, go do that big, scary thing.
Nice. All right. Sounds good. Well, you heard it from Disco Lenny herself. All right. Till next time.
Bye.